I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise me you'll hear the whole thing before you react. Because if I just lead with what happened, if I just say it plainly without any context, you're going to think the wrong thing. You're going to feel something sharp and quick and protective, and you're going to close yourself off before you get to the part that matters. And the part that matters is the reason I'm sitting here right now, more certain about you than I have ever been about anything in my entire life. So please, stay with me. Let me tell you everything from the beginning. I met your ex. I know how that sounds. Just keep listening. It wasn't planned. I want you to understand that first. I didn't go looking for this. I didn't seek him out, didn't arrange anything, didn't even know who he was when it first happened. It was one of those strange, unscripted moments that life occasionally drops into your path without warning. The kind you can't prepare for, and can't explain away, and can't stop thinking about for days afterward. Because something in you recognizes, even in the middle of it, that this moment is going to mean something. That this is not just a coincidence. That something larger is quietly rearranging itself around you. And now, having lived through it, having sat with it, having turned it over in my mind more times than I can count, I think I understand why it happened. I think it happened because I needed to see something. I needed to understand something about you that I couldn't have learned any other way. And what I learned, what came out of that unexpected, strange, completely unplanned encounter, changed the way I see you. Not in a small way, not in a passing way, in the kind of way that settles into your chest and stays there permanently, quietly reshaping everything. So let me tell you exactly what happened, every detail, all of it. It was an evening I almost didn't go out. You know those nights, the ones where you're tired and comfortable and the idea of staying in feels like the only sensible option. That was this night. I had every reason to stay home. I was exhausted from a long week. I had things to do. I had told myself I would be in bed early for once. But something, and I still can't fully explain this, something pulled me out of the house. Some quiet, insistent nudge that I've learned over time not to argue with. So I went. It was nothing special. A small gathering at a mutual friend's place. The kind of low-key evening where people sit around with drinks and talk and no one is performing for anyone. And I was fine. I was just there, present, but not particularly engaged, when someone sat down across from me and started talking. Easy, relaxed conversation. And somewhere in the middle of it, through the natural drift of getting to know you exchanges, his name came up in connection with yours. And suddenly I was paying very close attention. He didn't know who I was to you. I want to be clear about that. He wasn't performing for me or trying to send me a message. He was just a man at a casual gathering, talking honestly the way people do when they have no reason not to. And because he had no idea I would carry every word of this back to you, what he said was completely unguarded, completely real. And that's exactly why it hit me the way it did. He talked about you, not for long, not in a dramatic sweeping way, just casually, the way you mention something that still lives somewhere inside you, even though you've built an entire life around the fact of its absence. He mentioned you the way people mention a city they used to live in, not with active longing, but with the kind of settled, permanent recognition that says this place changed me, and I have never fully left it, even though I no longer live there. That's how he said your name, like it was a place he had once called home. And I sat there, and I listened. And I felt something I did not expect to feel. I felt grateful. Not in a complicated way. Not in a way tangled up with competition or ego or any of the smaller emotions that can crowd into moments like this. Just simple, clear, almost overwhelming gratitude. Because listening to him talk about you, even briefly, even carefully, even in the restrained way of someone who has made peace with something that once cost them a great deal, I could hear what you were. I could hear the outline of you through his words. The way you can sometimes see the shape of the sun, even when you're looking at the light it casts, rather than the source itself. He said, and I am going to tell you exactly what he said, because you deserve to hear it. He said that you were the kind of person who made everyone around you better without ever trying to. That you had this quality he could never quite name. This way of seeing people that made them feel, in your presence, like the best version of themselves. He said that when things were good between you, they were some of the best things he'd ever known. And he said, this is the part that stayed with me the longest. The part that I keep returning to. He said that losing you wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the slow realization, afterward, of how rare you actually were. That it took the absence of you to understand the full weight of what your presence had meant. He said he hoped you were with someone who understood that while they still had you. And I had to look away for a moment, because something moved through me that I wasn't prepared for. Something that felt like recognition and responsibility and a kind of love, so sudden and complete that it almost frightened me with its clarity. Because I thought sitting there looking away, feeling everything, I thought, I know how rare she is. And I am not going to be the person who only understands it in the aftermath. I am not going to need the absence to teach me what the presence is worth. I am going to know it now, while I have it, every single day. I didn't tell him who I was to you. I didn't think it was mine to share. But I shook his hand when the evening ended, and I held it a moment longer than necessary, because I wanted to say thank you in the only way I could, without explanation. Thank you for seeing her clearly. Thank you for saying it out loud. Thank you for giving me the gift of hearing you confirmed through someone else's loss. Because that's what it was. A confirmation of everything I already felt, but sometimes struggled to articulate. Of everything I knew about you intuitively, but had never heard spoken by someone with the particular authority of someone who loved you and lost you and had years of quiet reflection on the other side of it. He confirmed what I feel every single time I think about you, what I feel right now sitting here talking to you, that you are not ordinary. That you never were, that whatever lucky, extraordinary constellation of circumstances brought you into someone's life, they should spend every day understanding the magnitude of that. And I do. I want you to know that I do. But then something else happened, and this is the part I've been working up to. This is the part that kept me awake that night, staring at the ceiling with my heart doing something complicated and full in my chest. On the way home, I sat with everything he'd said, and I started thinking about you, the real you, the you I know, the you that exists in all the moments and conversations and silences we've shared, and I started thinking about how little you probably know about the effect you have, how little you probably know about the way you exist in other people's minds and hearts. Long after you've left a room, long after a chapter has closed, long after you've moved on and built something new, and maybe even forgotten that you left a mark at all. You don't know, do you? You genuinely don't know how much of you stays with people. And that broke my heart a little. In the softest, most tender way something can break a heart. Not with violence, but with the gentle pressure of understanding something important for the first time. Because you move through the world with this quiet uncertainty about your own worth. This small persistent doubt that lives somewhere behind your eyes and occasionally surfaces in the way you minimize yourself. The way you sometimes seem almost surprised when someone chooses you. The way you hold your own importance at arm's length as though being too certain of it would be arrogant, somehow. I want to dismantle that doubt. I want to take it apart piece by piece and show you what's underneath it. I want to hand you the evidence the way he handed it to me without knowing he was doing it. Through the unguarded honesty of someone with nothing to prove and no reason to perform. You are extraordinary. You have always been extraordinary. And the people who have passed through your life, even the ones who ultimately weren't right for you, even the ones who let you go or were let go of, carry pieces of you with them. You have shaped people. You have made people better. You have left light in places you don't even know you touched. Your ex knew it, he just knew it too late. I refuse to know it too late. This is why I needed to tell you this story. Not to make you feel strange about a chance encounter. Not to create something complicated where something beautiful should be simple. But because I sat across from a man who lost you, and heard in his voice the very specific grief of someone who understood too late what they had. And I made a decision. Right there. Quietly. Without fanfare. I made a decision that I am going to spend every day of whatever this is between us making sure you know. Making sure the appreciation I feel isn't just something I carry privately inside me like a secret, but something you feel in the way I look at you, in the way I listen to you, in the way I show up for you in all the small unremarkable moments that are actually the entire substance of a life. I am going to be the person who knows your worth, while he still has the extraordinary privilege of being in your world. And there's something else, something that came to me later that night, in the dark, in the quiet, when everything else had settled, and I was left alone with just the truth of what I felt. I realized that everything you've been through, every relationship that didn't work, every person who couldn't see you clearly, every version of love that fell short of what you needed, all of it was a road, a long, winding, sometimes painful road that led you exactly here, to this, to me saying these words and meaning every single one of them with a depth that surprises even me sometimes. And I don't want to rush past that. I don't want to skip over the weight of it in my hurry to get to what comes next. Because the road matters. Your road matters. Every step of it, especially the hard ones, especially the ones that cost you something, matters. Because it made you who you are. And who you are is the most remarkable thing I have ever had the privilege of being close to. I keep thinking about what he said, that he hoped you were with someone who understood your rarity while they still had you. And I want to answer that, not to him, he'll never hear this, but to you. To the part of you that has maybe wondered the same thing. That has maybe lain awake in the dark, asking the quiet, vulnerable question that most people are too proud to admit they ask themselves. Yes, you are with someone who understands. You are seen, you are known, you are not a placeholder or a chapter or a lesson someone needs to learn the hard way. You are the destination. You are the thing someone crosses every hard mile for. And I need you to let that land. I need you to actually let it in. Past the part of you that deflects compliments. Past the part of you that immediately looks for the caveat, the condition, the hidden clause that makes the love conditional. There is no hidden clause. There is no fine print. What I am telling you is exactly what it sounds like. Clean and simple and without agenda. You are loved. You are chosen. You are seen in the fullest, most complete sense of that word. And nothing about that is temporary or fragile or dependent on you being anything other than exactly what you already are. I know that might be hard to receive. I know because I've watched you. I've paid attention in the way that only someone who genuinely cares pays attention. I know that you have a complicated relationship with being loved well. Not because you don't want it. God, you want it. I can feel how much you want it. How deeply you long for it. In the careful way you sometimes hold yourself back. In the way you test the temperature of a moment before you let yourself fully inhabit it. In the way you've learned to protect yourself with a subtlety so practiced it probably doesn't even feel like protection to you anymore. It probably just feels like caution, like wisdom, like the reasonable behavior of someone who has been through enough to know that beautiful things can disappear. But I need you to hear this. What we have, what exists in the space between us, in the conversations and the silences and the moments where nothing needs to be said because everything is already understood. That is not something that is going to disappear. That is not fragile. That is not the kind of thing that evaporates when the newness wears off, or when life stops being easy, or when you show me a part of yourself you've been afraid to show. That is the kind of thing that is built from something deeper than circumstance. And I knew that before I met your ex. But sitting across from him, hearing him speak about you, with that particular mix of warmth and loss, it solidified something in me that I think needed to be solidified. It turned what I felt from something emotional into something architectural, Something load-bearing. Something I could put my whole weight on without wondering if it would hold. It will hold. I want to talk about what it did to me that evening, that conversation, after I got home. Because the outside of it was simple. I came home, I sat down, the apartment was quiet, but the inside of it was anything but. The inside of it was this enormous, rushing, almost overwhelming flood of clarity about what matters and what doesn't, about what I want and what I'm willing to do to deserve it. About you specifically and the particular miracle of the fact that you exist and that you're in my life and that I get to be the person you choose to let in. I sat there in the quiet and I thought about all the ways I want to love you better, not because I think I've been doing it wrong, but because that conversation reminded me that love isn't static. It isn't something you establish and then maintain on autopilot. It is something alive, something that needs tending, something that grows in the direction of your attention. And I want to give it all of my attention. I want to be so deliberate and so present and so genuinely invested in the ongoing project of loving you well that years from now, decades from now, you will never have to wonder whether you were a priority. You will know. Not because I told you once in a beautiful moment, but because the evidence will be everywhere, in the way we built our life, in the habits and rituals and small kindnesses that will have accumulated over time into something so large and so warm that it becomes the architecture of your entire sense of home. That is what I am committing to, quietly, privately, in the most real and unheroic way, not as a grand declaration, but as a daily practice, as the first thought in the morning and the last intention at night. And I kept thinking, sitting there in that quiet apartment, I kept thinking about the version of you that existed before me, the version that went through whatever it went through with him, with anyone who came before, and somehow, through all of it, kept her heart open, kept believing, kept choosing softness over bitterness, kept choosing hope over the seductive comfort of deciding that love was simply not something that worked out for her. You could have made that decision. After enough disappointment, it would have been completely understandable. More than understandable, it would have been rational. And yet you didn't. You stayed open. You stayed available to the possibility of something real. That is one of the bravest things I have ever encountered in a person. And I don't think you know that about yourself. I don't think you look at your own resilience and call it brave. I think you probably call it something smaller. Moving on maybe, getting through it, just what you do. But I want to rename it for you, from the outside, from the perspective of someone who sees it clearly because I'm not inside it. That is courage. The specific, underrated, quietly radical courage of continuing to love in a world that has given you reasons not to. I love you for that. I love you because of that. I love you because of all of it, all the experiences that shaped you, including the ones that hurt, including the ones that left marks, including the ones that sent you back to yourself to rebuild something that had been shaken. All of it made you more fully yourself. All of it contributed to the particular, irreplaceable, completely specific person sitting on the other side of these words right now. And that person, you, exactly as you are, is who I fell for. Not a simpler version, not an unblemished version, the real one, the whole one. Let me tell you something about that evening that I haven't told you yet. Something smaller, but in some ways more important than everything else. At one point in the conversation, before I knew who he was, before your name had come up, he said something that struck me as just generally true. He was talking about regret not in a self-pitying way, more in the philosophical way of someone who has arrived at a certain age, with a certain amount of reflection available to them. And he said that the regrets that stay with you longest are never the things you did. They are always the things you didn't do. The moments you were too afraid or too proud or too distracted to be fully present for. The people you didn't tell. The love you felt but kept at a careful distance because being fully in it felt too vulnerable, too exposed, too much like handing someone the specific instrument that could undo you. He wasn't talking about you when he said it. He was speaking generally. But later, after everything else had been said, After your name had come up and the conversation had taken the turn it took, I connected it. I understood what he hadn't said directly, but what lived underneath all of it. That with you, specifically, that was his regret. Not something he did, something he didn't do. Some version of full presence, full commitment, full willingness to be completely in it, that he held back from, that he kept at a careful, self-protective distance. And that by the time he understood the cost of that distance, you were already gone. And I drove home with that sitting in my chest like a stone and a compass at the same time. A stone because it was heavy, the weight of understanding how easy it is to fail the people we love, not through cruelty, but through absence, through the subtle withholding of our full selves. And a compass because it pointed somewhere clear and unmistakable. Toward you, toward showing up completely, toward refusing to let self-protection cost me the thing I want most. I am going to be fully in this, I need you to know that. Not the safe, measured, 1 foot in version of in this. All of it, every room, every corner, including the ones that are dark and complicated, and that I haven't fully explored myself yet. I am bringing all of myself to this, and I am asking, hoping that you'll do the same, that you'll let me see the rooms you usually keep locked, that you'll trust me with the parts of yourself you've learned, through difficult experience, to keep hidden from people who might not handle them with enough care. I will handle them with care. That is not a promise I make lightly. I don't make promises lightly. But this one I make with complete certainty, with everything I am, with the full weight of a person who has thought about this more carefully than he has thought about almost anything else. I want to tell you what I see when I look at you. Not the external things, though I could spend a long time on those too. On the specific way you carry yourself, on the particular quality of your attention when something genuinely interests you, on the way your face changes when something makes you laugh, and you're not trying to manage how it looks. Those things matter and I notice all of them, but what I really see underneath and through all of it is a person of enormous interior richness. Someone whose inner world is vast and complex and deeply humane. Someone who thinks carefully and feels deeply and moves through the world with a kind of ethical seriousness that is rarer than most people realize. I see someone who has been underestimated, not maliciously, just in the casual, careless way that the world sometimes underestimates people who are quiet about their depths, who don't lead with everything they are, who take time to reveal themselves not from secretiveness but from a hard, one wisdom about who deserves access to the real interior of them. You have learned to be selective with your vulnerability. And that selectivity, that careful, discerning, quietly intelligent selectivity, is something I respect enormously. Thank you for letting me in. I mean that in the most sincere and unperformative way. Thank you for deciding, at whatever moment you decided it, that I was someone worth letting past the outer edges. Thank you for the conversations that went deeper than they needed to. Thank you for the moments of honesty that I could tell cost you something, that I could tell required you to override the part of yourself that wanted to stay safe. Thank you for every time you chose to show me something real instead of something managed. I have not taken that for granted. Not for a single moment. And I never will. There's something building between us. I think you feel it too. This sense of momentum, of direction, of two people moving towards something that neither of them has fully seen yet, but that both of them can feel getting closer. Like approaching a city at night, still far enough away that you can't make out the streets or the buildings, but close enough to see the glow on the horizon. That warm, unmistakable glow that tells you something substantial is ahead, something worth the whole journey it took to get here. I think about that city a lot. I think about what it looks like when we arrive. I think about the life that's waiting for us on the other side of all this becoming. The ordinary, extraordinary daily life of two people who chose each other clearly and completely, and who wake up every morning inside the reality of that choice. I think about the version of you who exists in that life, still you, entirely you, but settled in a way you maybe haven't let yourself be settled before. Certain, at home in yourself and in us in the way that only comes from being genuinely, consistently, unmistakably loved. I am going to love you into that certainty. slowly, patiently, without pressure or timeline. I am going to show up so consistently, so honestly, so completely, that the part of you that has always been waiting for the other shoe to drop will eventually, quietly, stop waiting. Not because it was wrong to protect itself, but because it will have accumulated enough evidence to rest. To finally, completely rest. And on the night that happens, on the night that you realize somewhere in your body, rather than just your mind, that you are safe, that this is real, that it is not going anywhere, that you do not have to brace yourself against the possibility of loss, because what we have is the kind of thing that holds. On that night I want to be there, right beside you, close enough to feel the moment your shoulders drop, close enough to hear you exhale the way you've been needing to exhale for longer than you've probably let yourself admit. And I will not say a word in that moment. I won't need to. I'll just hold you the way you've always deserved to be held, completely, without condition, without the subtle undercurrent of someone waiting for something in return. Just held. Just present. Just two people on the other side of everything it took to get there. Finally, in the quiet that comes after the long, beautiful, exhausting journey of becoming ready for each other. I think about that moment more than you know. More than is probably reasonable. But then, I've never been particularly good at being reasonable where you're concerned. Something about you bypasses all of my careful, measured, sensible ways of moving through the world and goes straight to the place in me that just feels. That just knows. That doesn't need to analyze or evaluate or protect itself, because something more fundamental than logic has already made its decision. And the rest of me is simply catching up. That decision, by the way, is you. It has always been you. But let me come back to something. Let me come back to that evening, to that conversation, because there's a part I haven't told you yet, a part I've been circling around, because it's the most personal piece, the piece that required the most from me, the piece that I've been sitting with the longest, and that I want to get exactly right when I finally say it out loud. After everything, after your name, after his quiet grief, after all the things he said that confirmed everything I already knew about you, there was a pause in the conversation. One of those natural pauses that opens up between people when something real has just been said and neither person rushes to fill it. And in that pause, I looked at him, really looked at him. And I didn't see a villain. I didn't see someone who had wronged you or failed you or let you down in ways you're still carrying. I saw a person, a complicated, imperfect, genuinely human person who had loved something precious and lost it, and was living every day with the education of that loss. And I felt something unexpected. I felt compassion. Not pity. I want to be clear about that distinction. Not the condescending softness of someone looking down at another person's pain from a safe distance. Real compassion. The kind that recognizes itself in someone else's struggle. Because I understood looking at him that I am not inherently better than him. I have not arrived in your life equipped with all the wisdom and emotional clarity that he lacked. I am a person too, imperfect and complicated and still, in many ways, figuring out how to be the person I want to be. The difference, if there is one, is not in my nature. It is in my awareness. In the fact that I have been handed this understanding early enough to do something with it. That the lesson he learned in the aftermath, I am learning in the midst. And I intend to use it, every single day. I intend to let that awareness live in me actively, not just as a memory of a conversation I once had, but as a living, breathing practice. The practice of not taking you for granted. The practice of seeing you clearly while I have you. The practice of saying the things and doing the things and being the things that make love feel not like a risk you took, but like the safest decision you ever made. I owe him something in a strange way. I know that's an odd thing to say, but if he had loved you less clearly, if he had been someone who talked about you dismissively, or with bitterness, or with the flattened language of someone who had reduced a whole person to an explanation for their own pain, I wouldn't have gotten what I got from that evening. It was the clarity of his seeing you, even now, even after everything, that gave the conversation its weight. He loved you well enough to still see you accurately. And that, paradoxically, is what made me understand how much better I need to love you. How much more present, how much more deliberate, how much more fully awake to what I have. So yes, in a strange, roundabout, completely unplanned way, your ex made me love you better. Not because he taught me what to avoid, but because he showed me what you deserve. He held up a mirror to your worth in the honest, unguarded language of someone who had nothing left to gain from flattering you. And what I saw in that mirror was staggering. What I saw was you. The full, real, unedited truth of you, as experienced by someone who stood close enough to know. And it was exactly what I feel every time I'm near you. Every time you say something that cuts straight through to the core of things. Every time you look at me in that particular way that makes me feel both completely seen and completely unworthy of being seen, both humbled and elevated at the exact same time. It was the external confirmation of the internal experience. And something in me needed that. Something in me needed to hear it from a source with no agenda, no stake, no reason to say anything other than the truth. You are extraordinary. Not in an abstract, flattering way. In the specific, concrete, particular way of a person who has genuine depth and genuine warmth and genuine, irreplaceable singularity. There is no one else like you. I know people say that. I know it sounds like the kind of thing people say. But I mean it in the most literal sense. The specific combination of everything you are. The way your mind works, and your heart moves, and your humor surfaces, and your tenderness expresses itself. That combination exists nowhere else on earth. And I get to be close to it. I get to be the person in the room where it lives. I don't have the words for how that makes me feel. And I spend a considerable amount of my life working with words. So that should tell you something. I want to talk about us. Not in a planning, mapping future, projecting way. I know that can feel like pressure, and pressure is not what I want to give you. I want to talk about us in the present tense. In the living, breathing, right now reality of what exists between us. Because I think sometimes, in the forward momentum of wanting things to be good, we forget to notice that they already are. That something real and rare and genuinely beautiful is already here, already alive, already worth celebrating. What we have right now, today, as it currently exists, is something most people search for their entire lives and never find. The ease of it. The way conversations move between depth and lightness without effort. The way silences are comfortable rather than loaded. The way I can be fully myself around you without the low-grade performance anxiety that colors so many human interactions. The constant quiet calculation of how you're coming across, what someone thinks, whether you're being too much or not enough. With you, that noise goes quiet. With you, I just am. And being just allowed to be, with another person present, is one of the most profound gifts one human being can give another. You give me that, probably without even realizing it. And I want to give it back. I want to be the place where you can put everything down. Where you can arrive exactly as you are, tired, uncertain, brilliant, funny, sad, hopeful, all of it, any combination on any given day, and feel not just accepted but genuinely welcome. Not tolerated in all your complexity. Welcomed by it, wanted because of it. Chosen specifically for the full version of yourself, not despite it. Because that's the thing about love when it's real. It doesn't want a reduced version of you. It doesn't breathe easier when you're simpler or quieter or less. Real love wants the whole thing. It wants the parts that shine and the parts that struggle, and the parts that don't make sense yet, and the parts you're still growing into. It wants all the rooms of you, including the ones you haven't opened in a while, including the ones that need some air and some light and some patient, gentle presence before they're ready to be fully inhabited again. I want all the rooms. And I want you to know, because I think you need to hear this explicitly, because I think the people in your past may not have communicated it clearly enough, that your complexity is not a burden. Your depth is not a demand. Your feelings, all of them, including the ones that are inconvenient or difficult, or that arrive at inopportune moments, those are not problems for me to manage. They are part of who you are. And who you are is the person I want to be with. So feel things, all of them, around me. I can hold it. I want to hold it. That's not a performance of patience. That's just the truth of what love asks, and what I'm genuinely willing to give. Let me tell you what I noticed about you recently. Something small. The kind of small that most people would miss entirely, but that I've been thinking about ever since, because I think it says something important about who you are. There was a moment, and you won't even remember this, it was so brief, where someone near you was struggling. Not dramatically. Not in a way that demanded attention. Just quietly, privately struggling in the way people do when they're trying to hold something together in public and not quite succeeding. And you noticed, without making a production of it, without inserting yourself in a way that would have embarrassed them, you just quietly shifted. You moved in a little, said something small and perfect that gave them just enough to keep holding on. And then you moved on, like it hadn't happened, like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was one of the most genuinely kind things I have ever witnessed, because it required not just a good heart, but real attentiveness. The kind that notices things other people are too busy or too self-focused to see. It required the particular combination of warmth and tact and instinctive understanding of what another person needs that you either have or you don't. It can't be learned. It can't be performed. It just lives in certain people, naturally, as an expression of who they fundamentally are. It lives in you. And I stood there watching it and I thought this is the person. This is exactly and specifically the person. Not because of anything grand or impressive or externally remarkable. Because of this small, quiet, completely unwitnessed act of genuine human care. I think that's when I knew. Not for the first time, I'd had versions of knowing before that moment. But this was the kind of knowing that doesn't leave room for doubt anymore. The kind that settles something permanently. The kind where everything that comes after exists on a different foundation than everything that came before. More certain, more grounded, more clear. I knew I was in love with you. Not falling, not in the process of arriving somewhere. Already there. Completely, irreversibly, with my whole self there. In the specific, full, unqualified way that love means when it's not being cautious or protecting itself, or keeping one eye on the exit. In the way that means I have stopped calculating and started simply feeling, stopped wondering if this is wise, and started understanding that wisdom has nothing to do with it. That this particular truth exists outside the jurisdiction of wisdom entirely. I love you. And it is the most clarifying, most grounding, most profoundly simple thing I have ever known about myself. And there is so much I want to do with that love. So many ways I want to express it that go beyond words, beyond these moments of honesty that feel large in the saying but are still somehow not quite large enough to hold everything I mean. I want to express it in years. In the patient, daily, unheroic accumulation of a life genuinely shared. In the way I show up not just on the days when showing up is easy, but on the days when it costs something. In the way I choose you, consciously, deliberately, with full awareness of what that choice means, not once but continuously, not at the beginning but at every point along the way. I want to express it in the way I listen when you need to be heard. In the way I give you space when you need to breathe without immediately making your distance about me. In the way I celebrate what you accomplish, not with the complicated pride of someone invested in your success for their own reasons, but with the pure, uncomplicated joy of someone who just loves watching you become more fully yourself. I want to express it in honesty, in the willingness to have the difficult conversations, rather than letting things fester in the comfortable avoidance of them. In the trust that what we have is strong enough to hold disagreement, strong enough to survive the friction of two real people with real differences navigating a real life together. In the belief that conflict doesn't mean fracture, that two people can push against each other and come out closer rather than further, if they do it with enough care and enough commitment to the relationship as a thing worth protecting. I want to love you in all of those ways, and in ways I haven't thought of yet, in ways that only become available as time opens them up, as we go deeper into this, as we learn the specific language of each other that no one else speaks. I think about what your ex said, that he hoped you were with someone who understood your rarity while they still had you. And I want to give you the answer to that hope, not to him, he doesn't need it, but to you, to the part of you that has